Hello, losers, my wonderful friends. I'm Coral. Welcome to my channel. If you're joining me for the first time, I mostly read things that are dark and terrifying and tantalizing and spooky. So if you're into that, welcome to the party. Today, though, I am here with a list of books, a big list of books. I had to narrow it down significantly from like the list that I made the first time. These are books that are horror books specifically that are coming out in 2025 between January and June. So the first 6 months of the year. I will be doing a second half of the year video like this more towards July, but this is what's coming out in the first half of 2025. This is not a comprehensive list. As I said, there's no way I could possibly talk about all of the horror releases or even know about all the horror releases that are coming out in 2025. But then also I encourage you, if there's something you're excited about that I did not include on this list, because there are things that I'm even excited about that I don't have the time to talk about, unfortunately. So if there are things that I haven't included on this list and you'd like to discuss or like to shout out, or if you have a release coming out in 2025, leave it in the comments so that everyone can see. Anyway, let's get on with this list, starting with January. These are not in order of release date, but they will be in order of release month. I will let you know what month they come out in and a really brief description of each book. So first I'd like to talk about a book coming out by Clay McLeod Chapman called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. This is about like an apocalyptic type event. It says a demonic possession epidemic that spreads through media. So this is about a man named Noah whose parents listen to, the equivalent of Fox News, but then one day his mother attacks him, and he's not the only person that this is happening to. I've mostly enjoyed Clay McLeod Chapman's books. I think there's only been one that I read that was really so on. The rest I've really enjoyed, so this one sounds good. I have to say, okay, 2025, little sidebar here. We are getting a lot of books revolving around social media, books revolving around religious horror, a lot of folk horror, a lot of gothic horror, some dark fantasy I'm really excited about. So this year is really hitting some tropes that I particularly enjoy. And this one, with media making people go crazy, sounds excellent. And it makes sense. You do see trends through certain times in the US where, significant things are happening in the country, and then the books that come out after that are kind of processing that, such as books about the pandemic. So now we're in a different era, and it seems like there's a lot of social media related and religious related horror. I wonder why that is. On to the next book. Also in January, this is Clever Little Thing by Helena Echlin. This is about a woman named Charlotte who has a daughter, and her daughter has been kind of a handful, but she's very intelligent. However, after the death of their babysitter, Charlotte thinks that her daughter is taking on some of the personality traits of the dead babysitter, which is chilling. I do love books that revolve around motherhood or parenthood, books that revolve around kids acting badly. That's a trope I really enjoy. Also in January, we're getting a manga from Uketsu called Strange Pictures. It says, an exploration of the macabre where the seemingly mundane takes on a terrifying significance. So I do love manga, I do love horror, I read a lot of Junji Ito, and apparently this author Uketsu is also very popular, but I've never read any of their books. They also have one coming out later in the year called Strange Houses, so there's kind of a twofer for you. I'm assuming that they're kind of related. Also in January, a much much anticipated book because this had a release date for last year and ended up getting pushed back to 2025. This is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Oh my god, I have already secured my copy. I am super excited about this one. So this is about a group of girls at an unwed mother's home in the 1970s who discover witchcraft. Grady Hendrix is an auto-buy author for me, so he could be writing a cookbook and he could be writing an instruction manual and I would read it. Okay, my last January book is Metamorphosis by Ross Jeffrey, a haunting exploration of grief, obsession, and transformation. Cynthia, a woman who once thrived in her autonomy, now finds herself ensnared by a relentless desire to reclaim what she's lost. This is about a woman who is living a double life, it says, and she descends into a world where reality and fantasy intertwine, revealing the dark depths of her psyche. So what I like is women going through it. And I don't like that in real life, but I really enjoy that in fiction. So this sounds perfect. I've got 2 of Ross Jeffrey's books that I haven't read, so I should probably get on that. But this one, Metamorphosis, sounds really excellent. Next, in February, I'm super interested in this book called Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. This is a Carmilla retelling, a very well-known vampire novel, Carmilla. It says for fans of S.T. Gibson's A Dowry of Blood and Amelia Hart's Wayward, which I didn't read, but I read A Dowry of Blood. However, if this is a Carmilla retelling, maybe it should be more compared to An Education in Malice, which was another vampire novel that S.T. Gibson wrote. This is about a woman named Lenore who finds a carriage accident and the person involved in the accident is Carmilla. So this is like a sexy vampire book between 2 women. It sounds great. Then we have one that seems like it tiptoes from sci-fi into horror. This is called Casual by Koji A. Day. Okay, this is about this neural implant where you can play this game called Casual. And it says that Valia, the main character, has used this app to manage her depression and her anxiety, and it also helped her get pregnant. So now she is pregnant and her doctor thinks that she needs to wean off of this app, but she doesn't want to do that. And it says Valia must decide whether she should attempt parenting without Casual or install a minimally tested device in her vulnerable child. It says Casual is a stark and cutting glance at a near future that looks uncannily like our present, exploring themes of bodily autonomy and the struggle for mental health in a world increasingly divided. So this sounds almost like dystopia, utopia, something I really love. Next, also in February, is Sick Houses. This is a nonfiction book. It says Sick Houses, Haunted Homes, and the Architecture of Dread. This explores how the horror genre in film, television, and literature uses architecture and the ideology of the home against us. This sounds really cool. I do love a nonfiction that delves into exploring the horror genre. So it says, it also says, from the betrayal of sentient shape-shifting houses to shadow self, dollhouse, doppelgangers. Sick Houses examines how the horror genre subverts and corrupts that which is the most sacrosanct, our own homes. Also in February, Beta Vulgaris by Margie Sarsfield. This, oh, the cover of this is what I immediately saw. I think that this is on NetGalley, which is where I found it first. And this takes place also in Minnesota, which is my home state. And so, of course, I'm very interested in that because, like, what's usually going on in Minnesota? Not much. There aren't many books set in Minnesota. Not very many horror books, at least. So this is really exciting for me personally. This is about a couple who moved to Minnesota to work in a sugar beet farm. I don't know about sugar beet farms. There's a lot of agriculture in Minnesota, but I'm not familiar with sugar beets. Anyway, the woman in this, Elise, starts getting strange, threatening texts, a mysterious rash, and then also a string of disappearances happen from the workers' campsite, and a hypnotic voice coming from the beat pile itself. So what is happening? I don't know. It sounds so weird. I really want to read this one. Okay, our last book in February is Hot Singles in Your Area by Jordan Shiveley. It says, a blistering body horror following two imperfect strangers ensnared by sinister media powerhouse. So this follows two characters who somehow meet up. One of them is answering an advertisement for an ad for a new job, and it seems like they meet up somehow. I don't really know much more than that, but the cover is excellent. Like I said, the social media aspect, or just the media aspect, it seems like that is popping up in a lot of books, and that is a trope I'd really like to read more of. Next in March is The Unworthy by Agustina Bazterrica, and this, okay, we are talking about the author of Tender is the Flesh, the author of what was her short story collection? Something Blackbirds? I don't know. Didn't love her short story collection. However, I loved Tender is the Flesh, and this is a religious horror. The brief description of this is a work of literary horror about a woman cloistered in a secretive, violent religious order while the outside world has fallen into chaos. It also says, a searing dystopian tale about climate crisis, ideological extremism, and the title pull of our most violent, exploitative instincts. This is another unforgettable novel from the master of feminist horror. Okay, next in March, another book involving social media. This is Wrecked by Alex Gonzalez, and this is about a young man whose girlfriend has died in an accident, and after this, he starts exploring places on the internet and gets kind of, it seems like he might get radicalized. So it says, Wrecked combines the cautionary warnings of Black Mirror with the seedy rawness of Chuck Palahniuk and its unrelentless examination of the emotional holes we fill with content. Which, yeah, emotional holes we fill with content. Too real! Okay, next. Unholy by G. Gax. This also comes out in March. It says, Magdalena, a 48-year-old cloistered nun, has 2 days to stop the apocalypse. After she recruits Anna, a sex shop owner and domestic violence survivor, the duo set out to infiltrate the sex cult that will host the Antichrist's birth. Another excellent cover, another story about cloistered nuns. What more can I ask for? Okay, next, in March. This is The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a historical horror set in 1912. It says, following a Lutheran priest who transcribes the life of a vampire who haunts the fields of the Blackfeet Reservation looking for justice. It says it's an American Indian revenge story. It's written by Stephen Graham Jones. It's about revenge and vampires, and what more could I ask for? Also in March, this is a dark fantasy called Once Was Willem by M.R. Carey. M.R. Carey wrote The Girl with All the Gifts, if you remember that. That's a book that I read and I really enjoyed, but I haven't read any more of his books. But this is about, I don't know, is he a knight? Someone called Once Was Willem. And they call him Once Was Willem because he rose from the dead to defeat a great evil facing the humble village of Cosham. Pretty much all I know is that it's a dark fantasy book. It's written by an author I've enjoyed before. It's blurbed by Christopher Buehlman, who is probably my favorite dark fantasy author and one of my favorite horror authors as well. So, you know what? I'm gonna pick it up. It sounds great. Also in March is not technically, oh, well, maybe, I don't know. It says science fiction and horror, but I think that this is more on the sci-fi side, but this is by one of my favorite authors, Philip Fracassi. This is called The Third Rule of Time Travel. It says, this is not the story you think you know, and the rules are only beginning. What does that mean? I don't know, but it's about a scientist who has built a time machine. It says It allows human consciousness to travel through time to any point in the traveler's lifetime to relive moments of their life. But as she's doing this, it says she feels her timeline begin to warp. So what does that mean? I don't know. I'd like to find out. Next, we are into April and we're starting with Cold Eternity by S.A. Barnes. S.A. Barnes writes sci-fi horror, and for the most part, I've enjoyed her novels. Her last one I did really enjoy. So this is a new space horror novel. It says blends the dystopian dread of severance with the catastrophic approach to AI from Megan. Megan, what a movie. So what I'm interested in though is like, obviously the AI elements of this. So this is about a character who gets onto a space barge housing cryogenically frozen bodies of Earth's most wealthy citizens. However, she thinks that she might not be the only one awake. Next in April is another auto by author for me. This is Senseless by Ronald Malfi. And this is, it says, more of like a crime thriller, which I'm thinking of maybe Come With Me, which one of his books I just loved so much. It says, a page-turning, supernaturally tinged LA puzzle box thriller, Zodiac with teeth. But reading this, it almost sounds kind of like the Black Dahlia a little bit. It says that they find a mutilated body of a young woman in the desert on the outskirts of LA. It's similar to another body that the police have come across. We're also following a few different people in this, and it just seems like it's going to be twisty and very intriguing. It says 3 storylines converge to create a tapestry of deceit, distrust, and unapologetic horror. All right, I'll take it. Next in April, we have The Sundowners Dance by Todd Kiesling. This is about a man who moves to a retirement community, and it says he discovers his new neighbors are worshipping a meteorite. It says this is pitched as Cocoon meets The Color Out of Space, which I watched that on New Year's Eve with my friends. That is a great movie, Color Out of Space. And wow, what a coincidence to read or to watch that and then find this book like the day after. Next, also in April, we have St. Catherine by Anna Meyer. This is a graphic novel. It says about a woman who skips Sunday Mass for the first time in her life only to discover she is possibly being possessed by a demon. She takes matters into her own hands to try to exorcise these demons. Who knows how it turns out, but I'm very interested in it, especially it being a graphic novel. That sounds like so much fun. Also in April, we have When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. This is about a woman who finds a really young boy hiding outside of her home. While she's sheltering this boy, she comes into contact with his crazed, abusive father, and they have to run for their lives, it says. Sounds horrible, but also sounds excellent. I want to read it. Then last in April, we have The Staircase in the Woods by another author for me. This is by Chuck Wendig. This is about 5 high school friends who are on a camping trip and they find a staircase to nowhere in the middle of the woods. It says, one friend walks up and never comes back down. Then the staircase disappears. 20 years later, the staircase has reappeared. Now the group returns to find the lost boy and what lies beyond the staircase in the woods. I fucking love Chuck Wendig, and I'm gonna read anything he releases. This sounds so good. Now we mosey on into May. May is a big month. So is March. There's a lot of releases that were super interesting in both months. But first I'd like to tell you about Overgrowth by Mira Grant. This is another sci-fi horror novel. There are quite a few of these this year that sound really excellent. This is about a woman named Anastasia, and she has been telling people for years that she is actually an alien disguised as a human being. And when an actual alien invasion comes, I don't know, she's gonna have some sort of alien family reunion or something. Who knows? But lots of alien books, lots of space horror this year. I love it. I'm very excited about that. Then we have also in May, The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. The Devils, this is a dark fantasy story, and it shares the name of one of my favorite films, The Devils. This is about somebody, it seems like he must work for the church because his name is Brother Diaz. It says, his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. And the mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from them all in order to achieve its righteous end. So it sounds like it's gonna be a great time. Dark fantasy and religious shit. I can't wait. Joe Abercrombie is a really great fantasy author too, so even better. Next, an author that we've talked about already. This is written by Koji A. Day. It's called Hold My Heart, and this is about a woman who is trying to end her own life in an unconventional way. She seeks out a serial killer who can kill her in the most gruesome way she can describe, but she finds out that this person has some sort of parasitic alien living in him that feeds on the extremes of pleasure and pain. So where does this lead? I don't know, but it sounds really interesting. Next, also in May, is Feeders by Matt Serafini. And this is another book involving social media. This is about a young girl named Kylie, or maybe a woman, I don't know. It says a former classmate has a gruesome death, and she's trying to find the video of it, and she is able to find it on this off-the-grid social media app called Monolife. But this has it says cryptic rules in the user agreement that must be adhered to. So it kind of takes over her life. She has to log in twice daily, things like that. And it seems like it starts to ruin her life somehow. So another social media book, like I said, and boy, am I excited about this. Then also in May, we have The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. You might recognize her as the author of The Luminous Dead and The Death of Jane Lawrence, and also The Last to Leave the Room. So this is about a castle that has been under siege. There's no end in sight until this group of people come and save them. And we're following a nun in this as well. It seems like the saviors of the castle are into some freaky shit. And it says, as the castle descends into bacchanalian madness, forgetting the massed army beyond its walls in favor of hedonistic ecstasy, these three women are the only ones who still see their situation for what it is. But they are not immune to the temptations of the castle's new masters or each other, and their shifting alliances and entangled pasts bring violence to the surface. To save the castle and themselves will take a reimagining of who they are and a reorganization of the very world itself. So it sounds like there might be some queer aspects in this. It just sounds great. And also, this cover is great. I love this cover. One of my favorites from the bunch. Next, a novella from an author we've heard from also before. This is D7 by Philip Fracassi. And this is a novella. Listen, this is another one of his haunted furniture stories. This is about a haunted jukebox. But listen, we're gonna read it anyways. It sounds so silly, but so did Haunted Writing Desk, didn't it? And Gothic was fucking great, so I'm gonna read this. All right, then going on into June, I only have 3 books here. Not as many June releases announced yet, which, you know, that happens. And like I said, my list is not exhaustive. So these are just the 3 that caught my eye. Coming out in June, we have I Can Fix Her by Ray Wilde. This is about 2 women who are broken up. It seems like they didn't have like the greatest relationship, but now they come across each other again and decide to spend the night together. But upon waking up, there are some strange changes to their world. So it seems like this blends maybe like some sci-fi elements again. a lot of sci-fi horror coming out this year. Then in June, this is one like not very good rating on Goodreads so far, but has that stopped me from reading anything? Absolutely not. And I fucking love the cover of this. This is called Forclosure Gothic by Harris Lottie. This is about a ex-Hollywood actor who starts renovating houses, foreclosed houses specifically. But it says, then comes the uncanny, destabilizing arrival of new tenants in their duplex and a shocking discovery upon their departure. So it also says it has evocative and unsettling black and white photos throughout. So that's another thing that makes this seem very interesting to me. Maybe kind of like The Ghost That Ate Us by Daniel Kraus, possibly? I don't know. Okay, and finally in June, we have Smile for the Cameras by Miranda Smith. This is a slasher novel, and honestly, the plot of this doesn't sound super different than other novels that I've heard of, but I'd like to give it a try. This is about a woman named Ella who was in some like B-horror movies, specifically this one called Grad Night, which became a cult classic. And now I believe it's something like 20 years later, they have a reunion for the film in a cabin in rural Tennessee. And all the castmates come together again for the first time in years. But then people start dying, and they happen to have the same type of deaths that they had in the movie Grad Night. But luckily, you know, this woman Ella was the final girl in this film, so should she have to worry about it at all? Maybe, maybe not. I guess we'll have to read it and find out. Well, hello again. Yes, that is my list for some 2025 horror releases in the first half of the year that I'm really stoked about. Like I said, again and again, this is not an exhaustive list. There are books coming out in 2025 that I did not include on this list because it would take me way too long, because I was just looking for things that I found particularly interesting, because I can't possibly know about all the horror books coming out even in the first 6 months of the year. So if there are things that you're interested in, that you found, that you're putting out, that are not included in my list, go ahead and put them in the comments and let everybody know about them. That is what I have for you today. If you'd like to, I don't know, let me know what you're most excited about coming out, whether it's something I listed or something I didn't. Let me know. It doesn't have to be horror either. I also read other genres, but I just like putting together this horror list because that is what I'm most excited about. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your 2025 is starting out excellently. I hope you're reading some good stuff. I will talk to you later. Goodbye!